Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. That's a quote from The Life of Reason. We must learn from history to avoid making the same mistakes. Let's look at the history of XRP. It began trading around 2013. And what is the pattern here? It's pump and dump. Pump and dump. And now we're on the most recent pump. Each pump hits an extreme high price. Here you can see this is 3 standard deviations. This is probably hitting, well, at least 5, maybe 6, 7 standard deviations. This is the monthly chart. So one candle represents price fluctuations over 1 month. This month hits an extreme high, statistically extreme high. The next month dumps it. And eventually, the price comes down and hits an extreme low. Here, 2 standard deviations, -2 on the monthly chart. The dotted line is just average prices. This high was the ultimate high for XRP back in 2018. The most recent pump did not surpass that high. There are a few pumps in here. You get this one. It's off of average prices, goes up to 3, comes down to average, goes up above +3, corrects near average, goes up to 2, and then it takes a dive and goes and consolidates until it almost hits -2 down here before starting the next pump. Now, this is where we are. Above 3 on this one, and this one for 3 months. And then it starts to capitulate. So at least at this scale, 1 month candles, there are no trends here. And what I mean is it is not trending upward. There isn't a sustainable move in one direction. It's simply a pump and a dump scenario. This, I could say, since these candles keep closing here, there's the possibility of a trend starting at this scale. It's possible. Like, I am very aware of what the intentions are for XRP in becoming part of a new financial system, blah, blah, blah. I hear all of that stuff, but the truth is in the charts. Until I see that in the charts, some consistency, all I have in terms of history is pump and dump. This could come down to plus or -2 standard deviations again. Let's say it comes down to here. That's 50 cents. This could very easily come down to 50 cents. Well, who's buying down here? Let's look at what a pump and dump scenario actually is. This is from ChatGPT. I'm not necessarily going to call this fraud, or scammers, but what I will say is there's definitely misleading information out here. This is a legitimate market. XRP, I trade XRP. I like it because it's volatile. There are big moves in it and you can make money off of it. But I don't have any faith whatsoever in the type of hype and news that gets released, regarding XRP. So a pump is when the price is artificially inflated using false or misleading information. You could say this happens in any market, but there are markets that trend. I haven't seen a trend yet in XRP. There's no sustainable trend upward in any of these scenarios. This one remains to be seen. But in a pump and dump, you have, let's call them just self-interested organizations. They create and promote the hype to inflate the price. And the victims are really the people who aren't looking at the history. The organizers of the pump are buying down here at extreme lows. They're buying down here. This is pretty consistent, actually. It hits -2 standard deviations, goes sideways, then they're going to release some news, release some more good news to pump it up. And they're going to sell their positions up here. And that's why it dumps. They'll let it go sideways, let 2 standard deviations catch up. This is -2. And they'll do another campaign of hype, probably using social media and so-called experts and so on to pump it. and they're going to sell at an extreme high price. That's how they're making money. So people like this are not running a charity. They're there for profit. Just like anybody else involved in this market is there for profit. So don't put any so-called expert or official, certainly not a CEO, don't put them on a pedestal. They're there for profit. And for them to profit, if they have a big account, for them to profit, they need you to take the other side of their trade. If they're buying down here, they need you to sell. If they're selling up here, they need you to buy. That's how they exit their positions. And if they want you to buy so that they can exit, they need you to believe that this is going to the moon. The price is going to go to $100 or whatever. Well, I can tell you with no reservation that this is not going to $100 anytime soon. This is 1 month. What do you think it would take for this to get to $100? Look, that's $20 right there. What statistical extreme highs would this have to reach to even get to $10 up here? That's unsustainable. That would take a long time for that to happen. I would be surprised if this hits, well, could it hit $5 over the next 12 months? That's possible. It's not statistically impossible. What we have at the moment, though, is a market that it's already hit extreme highs. Okay? It's come off of 3 standard deviations. There's 3 days left in this monthly candle. Didn't quite get to 2 standard deviations. It could start to move up, but I really want to see this thing correct more, maybe to average prices. You see what it did here. Didn't quite get to average before going back up. It needs a breather for a move up to, say, $5. So I'm not looking at all of these. I'm certainly not trading off of these grand statements, all of this hype. I am looking for it to correct to a statistical low, an extreme low. Doesn't have to be on the monthly chart. It could be on the daily chart. So here's the daily chart. Here it hits -3 standard deviations. And then what does it do? Well, it goes up to 2, corrects to 2. Usually when it hits -3, my first target is the opposite 2, so this green band. Then it corrects a little bit below average, moves up, and hits 3 here, and 3 again. So now it's failing up here. It hits statistical extreme highs, and it's coming off. So the daily chart hasn't quite corrected to -2. It's getting there. But if this comes down and fails to continue, let's say it hits -3 like it did down here, and shows signs of reversing to the upside, I'm a buyer in here. I will buy it and then take it up, somewhere up here again. So that's how I'm looking at this. I'm looking at it as much shorter term and tighter prices than, it's going to $100 or $1 million or whatever all these, very exaggerated statements are. So to be honest, I do see this particular pump scenario as being a little bit different from the prior two because of how slowly it's coming off. So I definitely am open to the possibility that this can make a more sustained move upward, but to where? Well, that remains to be seen, but I really doubt we're going to see something like $10 this year. Could it hit 5? It's possible, but I'll believe it when it happens. All I know is I want to get in at a low price. I'm going to do the opposite to what the hype is saying, because you don't get the hype down here. You get the hype up here when the price is high. Usually the bad news comes out down here when the big accounts are getting in, because they know it's a lie. They know the bad news and the good news are both lies. because they occur at the wrong time. I want to buy at low prices when there's bad news. I want to sell at high prices when there's good news. So consider this to be a warning. Don't ignore the history of any market that has a pump and dump type of price action. If you look at something like NVIDIA, well, that's not what's happening here. That's trending. This is the monthly chart for NVIDIA. There is very sustained bullish activity here. Yes, it does correct. Here it corrected to average prices, and now it's heading back up. Might go back up to plus two standard deviations. This trending on 2 standard deviations, that's not occurring on XRP. It also doesn't occur on Hedera hash graph, HBAR. It is another pump and dump history. Here it starts off at the top of the pump and then dumps. Pump and dump, pump and dump. On the most recent one, you can see only when these lower Bollinger Bands, it does not get to -2 on this time frame. It will on a weekly, but it's just sideways before the next pump. I'll show the weekly because I know that HBAR uses, see here's the weekly, it uses the weekly 2 standard deviation as its statistical low. So it does it all the way back here before the next pump. So this is the end of a dump. And then it takes off. You see it's using -2 standard deviations as its statistical low. On the weekly chart for Hedera, they all have their own little personalities. You have to look at the price history to know what it uses. So for this one, I would say there's a higher likelihood for HBAR to come down and retest its lower bands than XRP. I'm not saying it will, I'm just saying the likelihood is higher. The reason why is because I will look at HBAR versus XRP as a market. So you can see here, this is Hedera against XRP. And whenever HBAR got too high compared to XRP, so you can see it did it here, did it here. I mean, the bands don't come back here because there isn't enough data. This is the monthly chart. It is coming off of that high, which means Hedera is getting weaker against XRP at the moment. Here's the weekly chart. So it hits these highs at +3, and it's coming up. See, it hit a recent +3, tried it twice, and it failed. So Hedera is getting weaker against XRP. So that's why I say Hedera is more likely the one to come to its lower bands, before XRP does. The last thing I'll say is, do you remember what the news was when this is XRP daily chart? When did they say that the lawsuit between SEC and XRP was maybe going to be terminated? It was in here. So that's good news. Then it hits this extreme high price. And then on this candle right here, this daily candle, what was the news? Oh, well, the lawsuit's going to continue. Then you get the bad news. But it happens after this happens. So the big accounts had already exited their trades. They benefited from the good news driving the price up, which probably suckered in a lot of people to buy in here right at this very statistically extreme high price. It hits +3, good news. Then the big accounts exit their trades. They needed people to buy here so that they could sell. And that's what happens on this news. They're out of their positions. Oh, and then they release the bad news that the lawsuit's going to continue. How convenient, right? Stop listening to the news. Stop listening to the hype. It puts you on the wrong side of the market. Buy down here or here, even here. Definitely don't be buying up here, these highs. The next possible opportunity is coming up somewhere in this area. Let's see what happens.